All right, let's see what the internet thinks of Ganyu. Oh my god. Okay, seriously, everybody just needs to chill. Hey, what's going on, guys? How is everybody doing? So, Ganyu is, of course, the hottest topic in Genshin Impact right now, and apparently everyone thinks she's busted or broken or whatever the term they want to use. I don't exactly think so. She's definitely good, but I don't think she's broken. So in today's video, we're going to be talking a little bit about her. I'm going to be giving my thoughts and opinions on her, let you know whether or not I think she's worth pulling for. And then at the end of this video, I am going to address a little bit about power creep. So for all of you guys who don't really want to listen to any more about power creep, you can skip that part, but you might find that my take is not the same as everyone else's. I think I have a really different take than everyone else. But first, let's jump into Ganyu and talk a little bit about my thoughts and impressions on her. So first of all, let's talk about her strengths. What is she good at? Well, obviously, she's incredible at damage. You guys have seen the showcases on YouTube. I've seen them. She hits crazy big numbers, and that's basically all because of the scaling on her charge shot with her bloom attack. It's basically a burst that you can spam. It just has insane scaling, topped with the fact that her ascension stat is one of the best in the game. Having crit damage built into her kit like that is huge. You guys know when you're building artifacts, crit rate and crit damage are two of the best stats that you can build for end game builds. And the fact that she has crit damage built right into her kit means that it's a lot less important to go ahead and build crit damage on your artifacts. Now, obviously, crit damage, we can get that like as high as we want, and then we can get huge hits. But it takes some of the stress off for you guys who don't have the resources to just roll on unlimited 5-star artifacts or even 4-star artifacts. Also, the fact that she has a bunch of crit rate built into her kit. So on her first ascension, she's getting an additional 20% crit rate on top of every other Frostflake arrow that she shoots, which is, I mean, really big. 20% on an attack that you're basically spamming, that's a lot of crit rate. On top of the fact that she's already half of the cryo resonance. So if you just put another cryo support on the team, she's applying a lot of cryo herself, and because she's not taking that cryo off, she's going to be consistently keeping up that resonance bonus. So that's another 15% crit rate. On top of that, one of her best sets is the Blizzard Strayer set. Now, since we're applying cryo all the time, that's another 20%. If you put her on a team with a Hydro unit and you get a lot of freezes, that's an additional 20%. So you're talking anywhere from 55 to 75% crit rate. That's all without including a crit rate circlet. That's without including substats. That is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And that's one of the reasons why you see a lot of big numbers so quickly and so easily from a lot of these people on YouTube. Really, you don't have to put a lot of love into her artifacts. You can have a pretty decent set, and she already has so much of these very important stats built in that she's pretty easy to build out. And then when you do get good artifacts for her, it pushes her like way over the top into like really, really consistently good territory. Now, we also have the fact that she has really good reactions. She has access to a reverse melt, which is not as good as regular melt, remember, because we're not getting that 2x boost, we're just getting a 1.5x boost to damage. But because she already has so much crit damage, really, do you need more damage? Like, have you seen the damage she does? So that reverse melt is a really big deal. She also has access to freeze, which is perfect synergy with one of her best sets, which is Blizzard Strayer. So if you're freezing enemies, you're going to get an additional 40% crit. And since she already has such high crit damage, that's going to be really good for her big damage. Also, the fact that as a support unit, she helps really consistently trigger Superconduct. Her burst is extremely good for this, as well as her skill. You can drop down her little Lotus, which deals AoE cryo damage. You can switch out, go in with whatever your physical carry is, Razor, deal a little bit of electro damage for Superconduct, and then it's going to explode later, dealing more cryo damage. So that way you can set up Superconduct again. As well as her burst, you know, MiHoYo actually buffed her burst, coming down from 20-second cooldown to 15-second cooldown, which is now the same as Kaya with a C2, as long as you get all his kills to extend the cooldown. And that's huge. The fact that basically the way it works, if you don't know, is there are certain waves that happen in her burst. Each wave is going to target up to 6 enemies. If there aren't 6 enemies on the field or in that radius, the rest of the icicles will be random. but basically you're dealing a bunch of cryo damage that's all targeted in a wide area, and it does quite a bit of damage. So with decent energy recharge, you can keep this burst up 100% of the time. It's incredibly powerful. The range is huge on this, so you can deal a ton of AoE cryo damage. Basically what this means is that we've already seen that she is incredible DPS, but it also means that she can be a very good support unit, which is very important when it comes to heroes because we want to play our heroes on more teams, so flexibility is key. So if those are some of her key strengths, what exactly are her weaknesses to balance this out? And this is kind of where it comes down to where I don't think she's exactly broken, because I think there are a lot of things that actually take away from how good her damage is. First of all, shields. She can't break through her shield to save her life. Specifically, like the rock or wood shields that hilichurls or midachurls carry. Like if you try and do Abyss Floor 12, like the first half, there's shields everywhere. She just can't break through them. So you're going to need another character if you want to break through those. She just can't do them herself. Even if you shoot enemies in the back or wherever their shield isn't covering them, it's still going to count as a shield hit. There's like a weird way their hitboxes work. So like on the midachurls, when they charge you, you can shoot them because they're not shielding. But as soon as they stand up with their shield, even if they turn around, it's still going to act like you're hitting a shield, which obviously is not the greatest. She has a really tough time with these types of enemies. Then we get to her gameplay, and it is an acquired taste to say the least. I am not a fan of how her gameplay plays out, and I know it's probably not going to be for everyone. It's really slow. It kind of feels clunky. She's also extremely vulnerable. That's another thing that's really not great with her. She's very squishy. Her health is very low, one of the lowest in the game, you know, bottom like third of all the characters in the game, I think. So because of that, like if you're aiming down sight and someone comes up behind you and hits you, it can really just like throw your Ganyu out the window and she can die extremely easily. Plus the fact that if you're charging a shot and then, you know, right before you shoot it, you have to dodge, then you got to charge it up again. Because she's a charge attacker, you're going to lose a lot of damage there, which is another thing, you know. Her attacks are charge attacks, so they're going to take a lot longer to charge up than someone who's just doing a bunch of left clicks and doing a bunch of auto attacks. So overall, yes, she's hitting harder, but because her hits are coming slower, it kind of balances itself out. And then lastly, and this is the one that I think is most important for people who are deciding whether or not they want to roll on her, is there really aren't any good reaction supports for her. There are some decent ones, don't get me wrong, but all the best ones just don't really work with her. And honestly, Pyro is kind of lacking in terms of elemental support. So the best elements that you're going to want to go with her on a comp for her reactions are either Pyro and Hydro. So if we take a look at Hydro first, the best overall Hydro support in the game is Xingqiu, and unfortunately he doesn't work with her at all. Technically you can use him with her, but that means you have to start using her autos, which is obviously going to lose you a lot of DPS, as most of her damage, if not all her damage, is basically coming off her charge attacks. It's really just a clunky way to play her. It's not great. So we could also look at Child, but Child doesn't really have any residual way to add Hydro. Really the big thing here is when he's not on the field, he's not applying Hydro in any way, and that's kind of like a really big downside. We also have Barbara, but the problem with Barbara is that when you activate her skill, yes, you can apply wetness or wet. I don't know exactly. I guess the Hydro element. You can apply the Hydro element to your enemies, but you have to go up right next to them. And as we talked about earlier, Ganyu is really squishy. So if you are getting right up next to enemies, it might spell out a lot of trouble, especially if you're trying to aim shot. Like if you're trying to charge your shots and you're standing right next to an enemy, they're probably going to hit you before you can get that charge shot off. So that leaves us with Mona, and Mona's fine. I just haven't been like really excited about her. Like her skill is good. It can apply Hydra, and it works kind of the same way as Ganyu's skill, as like a taunt. So there are going to be enemies that group up around it. But overall, it's not very exciting. Like Xingqiu, she's no Xingqiu. Like she does a lot of burst damage, don't get me wrong, but overall currently I haven't found her to have that oomph that Xingqiu has. So then moving on to Pyro, obviously first we have Bennett. I'm not saying Bennett is a bad support, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to applying the Pyro element, he's quite bad. All his instances are single instances. He can't do any continual Pyro application. So with the skill, it's just one swing. That's all he does. With his burst, same thing. He does his little flip, hits the ground, and that's all the Pyro element he creates. And then as soon as you melt it off, it's gone. That's all he does. And Jinyan is basically the same way. Her skill does the same thing. It's a one hit that applies Pyro. It goes away. I mean, technically, if you get a level 3 shield, you can apply Pyro continually that way, but it has the same problem as Barbara. You have to get up close, and obviously Ganyu doesn't want to get up close. Her burst does have a DOT for Pyro, but that is also not the most efficient or effective when it comes to applying Pyro. Now, you could technically look at Diluc and Klee, but they're kind of in the same boat. They have no residual Pyro damage. So that leaves us with Zhongling and Amber. Now, Zhongling is fine. She's definitely the best one we have. The problem is Guoba sucks. His targeting is just really not good, especially like if you're moving around. He's just not going to hit enemies that consistently. He's definitely the best we have, don't get me wrong. So Zhongling I've found is kind of like her best support so far in terms of Pyro, but it's just not great. You know, we need like a Pyro unit that's like a mix between Xingqiu and Fischl in order for her to really shine in a reverse melt comp. Now, we also technically have Amber, who's, you know, fine. She also has a taunt with her skill, explodes, does Pyro damage. You can set up reverse melts that way. And then her burst is decent at Pyro. It's decent. The problem is you're then playing Amber, which I don't think anyone really wants to do, but those are honestly kind of like your two best options. This is one of those things though that of course they could fix in the future with further releases. You know, if they release like a Fischl but for a Pyro element, obviously Ganyu gets a lot better, but as of currently, that's one of her big weaknesses. So if we're looking all this and compacting it down and we're asking ourselves, is Ganyu worth wishing for? I think an important question to ask before you even take all this info into consideration is, do you like her gameplay? That is huge, because I think for a lot of people, that's going to be a huge factor and either a turn off or a turn on. For me personally, if she wasn't a good support unit, this would be a huge turn off, because I absolutely do not like her gameplay at all. Don't get me wrong, I like seeing big numbers, but in terms of actual gameplay, it's not for me. Now, the fact that she can play support is really interesting. I obviously wanted her because I'm a Razor main, and she was just going to outperform Kaya, especially once they brought her burst down from 20 seconds to 15. So she does kind of replace my Kaya for me. So overall, do I think she's worth pulling for? Yeah, I do. The fact that she is so flexible, she can either be a carry or you can have her be a support. And as a support, you know, we already have a lot of good cryo support. So if you're not in need of a good cryo support, and you don't want her for a DPS, I would say that she's probably not worth it. But as a DPS, she's going to be extremely, extremely good. And if you're in the market, like, to build a DPS for every element, right? We have Diluc, we're getting Zhao, we have Child, we have Keqing or Razor. Ganyu can be your DPS for cryo element. Now, obviously, we have Chongyun and Kaya there again, but she just outperforms them both easy, and she's just going to be the best cryo DPS we have, potentially until Ayaka comes. So basically, I think the fact that she can play both roles very consistently is very important, because if you are deciding, you know, which character to roll on in the future or this one currently, flexibility, I think, plays a big, big role. Especially for you guys who don't roll on every banner, you want characters that are flexible. So that way, even if you build, like if you build a very specific character, it's going to be really hard or potentially hard to move that character onto a different team. So having a character like Ganyu that is flexible, that can fit onto a lot of teams and do a lot of different things, I think that's very important to have access to. So if you were on the fence about pulling for her, my recommendation would be go for it, but just make sure to be financially responsible. Don't wish for it if you can't make it for yourself financially. Your personal well-being is much more important than any character in this game. All right, and now we get into the part that I feel like is going to be controversial, potentially. Hopefully you guys see my point of view and it doesn't turn into a slugfest down in the comments. Please try and be civil if you're discussing this topic, because I know that it is a touchy subject for a lot of people. So, how does Ganyu relate to power creep? Because it's obviously been a big discussion in the Genshin community. So, first of all, I want to go ahead and define power creep, so that way we're all on the same page about what specifically I'm talking about. Because I do think that there is one important factor that's very important for us to mention when we talk about this. So, power creep is basically the slow increase of power or an aspect of a game to a point that it invalidates prior aspects. So, in our case, we're talking about heroes or weapons, basically until the point where they become irrelevant. So that's one side of it. The other side of it, and I think the part that a lot of people are overlooking, or at least the people that I've personally talked to are overlooking, I would also include a part that says you have to have a certain character to clear content in the game. So let's create a hypothetical situation where Diona does not exist in the game and Ganyu has not been released yet. MiHoYo comes out with a new domain, or maybe something harder than a domain, but whatever, that kind of content, right? And up in the top, you have two Electro Fatui mages, archers, whatever it may be. They're ranged units that have shields. and there's no way to get to them with a melee unit. Now, how are you going to deal with those while you also have enemies on the ground? They're shooting you, doing a lot of damage. You got to get rid of them quickly. Then MiHoYo goes and drops this Ganyu banner. Well, we have a cryo archer. Am I going to roll on him? Well, it makes this domain a hell of a lot easier. The fact that, you know, obviously she's cryo, she's going to take out those electro fatui shields real fast, and I can't get to them if I don't have an archer anyway. So it's probably going to be beneficial if you ever want to clear that domain to go ahead and wish for that character. That, I think, is a problem, because that is what can lock players out of game content, and that is not fun at all. Being locked behind a paywall like that, in that sense, is not good. However, if we take that type of situation out of the equation, I have no problem whatsoever with MiHoYo releasing more powerful characters over time. At the end of the day, this is a PvE game. You're not playing against other players, you're playing against a computer. So basically, you have nobody to compete with. You can play whatever heroes you want. If you want to play a Kaya over support over Ganyu, you might have to take a little bit more time or put a little bit more investment into them in order to clear the highest end content. But other than that, there are like really no downsides to using a Kaya over a Ganyu. Now, looking at another point, you know, looking at it from MiHoYo's perspective, from a business perspective, let's try to remember that they are a business. Their sole goal is to generate a profit, whether you like it or not. That's how capitalism works. They want to make money. So what would happen if they drop a weak character, or let's even say average character? Let's say they drop an average character. What's going to happen? Like, are people going to get hyped about it? Are people going to get excited to wish on that banner? Nope. Take a look at Zhongli. That's basically the scenario we're talking about, and everyone raged at that. So if you now create a hero that's not powerful enough, people are going to rage. So basically, you get stuck in this situation for MiHoYo as a company where you can't have a character be too weak, but you can't have him be too strong. You have to have him right in the middle, which basically now you're saying every character has to be at the same power level. Now, what happens when we get a month, 2 month, 3 month, 4 month, however long in the future when every character is the same exact power level? It's going to get really, really stale. No one's going to want to wish on banners anymore, and the game is going to slowly die because there's no new or exciting content. That's what gets people hyped about characters, is when you see a new character that they're doing crazy things that you haven't seen before or bigger damage, gets people hyped. When you have a new character who comes out and they hit like a wet noodle, that gets nobody excited. No one wants to wish on them because, let's face it, characters are expensive to get, especially the 5-star characters. Couple that with the fact that I know firsthand that a lot of you guys are not actually rolling on every character out there. You know, I've talked to you guys in the comment section, and a lot of you guys just, you know, it's just a finance thing. You just can't afford to roll on every character, and I completely understand that. So when it comes down to it, what does it matter if a character like Ganyu comes out who basically replaces Kaya if you're not even going to roll on her? Like, if you're saving up for Zhao, what does it matter if Ganyu is, you know, the strongest cryo character we have? I'm not necessarily saying she is, but hypothetically, if you're not going to roll on her, because like, at the end of the day, remember, it's a PvE game. You're literally only playing with yourself, so who cares if you don't have a Ganyu? You might be jealous of someone who does have one, but that's not really MiHoYo's problem. Like, I'm sorry to say, it's not. They need to generate a profit, so they need characters who are exciting to wish for. Now, power creep is, of course, a touchy subject for people to talk about because of other games, specifically PvP games. So for any of you guys who don't know, I come from a Magic the Gathering background. Now, every time a new set comes out for the new standard format, which is just like the last 2 years of cards that have been released, usually what happens is a card comes out that's better than everything else. Some pro or circuit player or whatever starts playing that card. Everyone realizes that card's busted. And then basically, if you're not playing that card, you're doing it wrong. So basically, if you guys are familiar with the game, the ones that I remember most in recent memory were things like Smuggler's Copter and Aetherworks Marvel. These cards were just simply busted. Now, in that case, because it's a PvP game, you're playing against another player. If your deck is just invalidated because someone's playing a strategy that's more powerful than yours or is just flat out broken, it's not fair for you to go into a tournament with a weaker deck because you're just going to get stomped. But in this game, who cares? Like, you're not competing for anything. You're competing against yourself, literally. The hardest content in this game being Abyss, the worst thing you lose out on if you can't 9-star your floors is a little bit of rewards. Does that suck? Yeah, it does kind of, but at the end of the day, like, if you wanted to put some more resources into your characters, you could drop some coin. Now, that's a whole different situation. We're not getting into free-to-play versus whales in this video or at all, because that's just a whole nother can of worms. So basically, what I'm trying to get at here is my whole point is this is not really a problem unless my prior argument that I was saying, releasing content where you need specific characters, that would become a problem. But as it is now, I really do not see this as becoming a problem. Unless I'm missing something, you know. If I am, let me know. I don't think that I am. I think I've looked at this from like every angle possible, from talking to different people. It just doesn't seem like it makes sense. A lot of the arguments that I do hear are about potential future updates where they could do like a PvE leaderboard system, or what if they did PvP? If they do PvP, they're going to break the game in other facets, so I'm not even worried about that. But even if they do a PvE leaderboard, like, yeah, you're gonna have your whales at the top of the leaderboard. That's just how it works. It's a pay-to-win game. If they release some kind of player versus player competition, but right now, this is definitely not a pay-to-win game. It's definitely pay-to-play if you want the higher-end characters and weapons. But other than that, this game is completely clearable without spending any money. You just have to know that before you get into the game. So guys, let me know what you think about that whole power creep situation down below in the comments. But remember, please try to keep it civil, stay positive, don't be going at each other's throats. It's really just, it's not worth it. But I am curious to hear your thoughts and opinions, so please let me know down in the comment section below. But guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you did enjoy. And if you want to see some more content from me, you can head over to my Twitch page, twitch.tv/xjazze. We stream there 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And before we do that, we do stream on YouTube. So if you want to know when I go live, you can go ahead and subscribe to this channel. You can like the video if you liked it, click that notification bell, that way you never miss a video. And of course, if you want to join our community over at Discord, link will be down in the description below. But guys, that's all I got for today. Hopefully you did enjoy, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.